Greetings, esteemed viewers. I am on break from this channel for the most part. I shall remain so for a while. Busy with real life, and I have another gaming channel that I've been working on quite a bit, learning Sony Vegas and stuff. Those of you who are interested, stop by. But I think Barbarossa made an extremely important video addressing this issue, which I have kind of seen crop up every now and then. Now, this is on the fly. I'm just going to offer some thoughts. I think Barbarossa stated, let me just say at the outset, I'm pretty much 100% in agreement with him, which is often the case. But I think I can add a few things, maybe, to what he said, although he pretty much stated everything that needed to be stated. Let me also mention that I'm kind of jumping in terms of order, but let me mention that I had made a video, and specifically in response to Eugene Pon's a while back, wherein I had talked about the kind of woman who may or may not be legitimately interested in the MRA or the MRM. And I talked about the woman with son, divorced, and so on and so forth example. I had cited that as a possible example. I had also cited it as something that is probably, in terms of the strength of commitment and the actual devotion to the cause, by far not as legitimate as a woman such as Girl Writes What, who understands the principles, the cause and effect, and for altruistic reasons, for reasons of justice, for reasons of true understanding, seeks to address these issues, rather than having a son who was simply wronged in a divorce court. That's all well and good, but we simply see the limited female loyalty to bloodkin, it's been mentioned before, in effect there. That's all it is. It's bloodkin loyalty. It's not loyalty or understanding of an abstract principle or of less abstract principles, the many principles that encompass what we might call the MRM. So I've mentioned that specifically before. Also, just like Barbarossa, I've done videos on South Korea and made a couple on China, addressing hypergamy, this idea that it's somehow outside of the West, it doesn't exist, it's just bollocks. But before I proceed, I think Man-Woman Myth, who, those of you who don't know him, please subscribe to his channel. Excellent material. He really is a brilliant filmmaker and has a lot to say. But I'm going to quote one of the comments he made in Barbarossa's video. Quote, "Worrying about how the ideas we discuss might be perceived by the uninitiated is worse than futile and likely counterproductive. It's a shame that so much energy is put towards these concerns. We are not popular in the dictionary sense and never will be, but then again, neither do we need to be, as discussed in the vid. Much better to say what you think needs to be said in the manner of your choosing and let the chips fall where they may." Now, I think that's a very powerful statement, and I think that's what Barbarossa does, and I've tried to do the same thing on this channel. I've officially stated, I think in my previous video on homelessness, I'm not an MRA. I don't engage in activism, and I think there are too many differences in my personal philosophy regarding these issues, and as someone who is going his own way, to give myself that label. I have nothing against them. I think it's great what they're doing for the most part. And I also don't have anything against Fiddleboat. He makes some great videos, and I love the workers in the vineyard concept, so that's another plus he's got going for me. But that said, we do all need to state our message as we are accustomed to stating it. And I remember one of my viewers made a comment. I'm often regarded as an extremist, as is Barbarossa, I would think. But I much like Barbarossa, I'm not going to stop talking about female hypergamy. I'm not going to stop talking about female nature. I'm not going to stop talking about male nature. I'm certainly not going to stop talking about human biology. Now, one thing I think I can add to this discussion a bit is that I can tell you why I personally, among other reasons, focus on human biology, female nature, and male nature, the male nature that enables all of these passes that they get, that has enabled the state of affairs that we currently live in. It's quite simple. If you take away all of the trappings of civilization, strip away all of the clothing, if you will, the garments, the illusions, what we have is simply a relatively intelligent animal that at its base is still primarily concerned with reproduction. Reproduction, reproductive drive, these are the driving forces of all living species, and human beings are no exception. Now, it is true that human beings, with their rather complex civilization and lots of technology these days, in addition to that, have a kind of sidewinderish way of going about reproduction. It's not as cut and dry as it is, say, with, well, I don't know, a bunch of frogs or mice or what have you. But that said, that is, at the end of the day, what is going on. I mean, that is the foundation, the buttress of it all. Given that fact, and it is a fact, why not talk about it? By not talking about it, one is totally dodging, skipping the issue, the causes, more importantly, that affect men and women. This whole mess that we're in currently is a mess that has resulted, not specifically or solely rather, from politicized feminism, but hundreds of thousands of years of hominid evolution wherein females were preferenced and privileged for the simple reason that they were the limiting factor in reproduction. It's quite clear. A man can die, his offspring can live on, a woman cannot. She needs to bear the child, bring it to the world. Very simple principles operating there, but it all leads to our current state of affairs, our current situation, the one we find ourselves in now. Not talking about biology and its incredible importance in our behavior, not just men, not just women, but men as well. It's just missing the point. It's like telling someone who's journeying to the steppes of Australia, which has a lot of poisonous creatures, scorpions, spiders, arachnids, snakes, saying it's really dangerous out in the steppes of Australia, but not telling them why. There are tiger snakes, there are recluses, there are all sorts of poisonous creatures that will sting you and you'll die from it. It's missing the point. It's like having a clogged pipe, and you only unclog the little bit on the top so your sink can drain a bit. But deep down, it's just clogged to death, and you're probably going to have to dismantle the whole thing and replace it, or just totally get rid of all the muck in it using some sort of really strong fluid. Not best analogy, but you see what I'm getting at. I'm doing this on the fly. Not talking about human biology, female hypergamy, male biology, male dominance hierarchy, how we punch ourselves in the face in order to our fellow men, and how we walk over each other in an effort to gain female favor. Not talking about that is really missing the mark, because we can quite honestly talk about feminism till we're blue in the face, but if the key issues, feminism could not exist without female nature and without men's willingness to accommodate that nature. It simply would not exist. The in-group studies show it, that we favor women over men. The evidence is there. Not talking about female nature is ultimately harmful, I think, ultimately. Because as I said, I'm not an MRA, and I just have this small channel, and like Barbarossa, I've received a number of PMs telling me that I've helped men out. Few from women, never really in that sense, but yeah, I've helped men out. Why? Because it's kind of like the missing link. People talking about feminism till you're blue in the face doesn't give men the understanding, that missing link that they need to create a model of the world that is actual, that is real, and that can be mapped onto real events in their lives. Because it's a pure abstraction. Talking about concrete things in terms of statistics, numbers, female hypergamy, the male dominance hierarchy, male suicide, all these things, they're very much concrete things that people, many of my viewers, can map on to in their daily lives. They can attach that to an event or a series of events. It makes sense. And the reason why it makes sense, and there's so much consensus in that regard, is because it's all real. Female hypergamy exists. You can't not talk about it and then make it go away. More importantly, there are a number of political benefits, long-term political benefits. I've talked about this numerous times, and once again, I'm in accord with Barbarossa, starving the system. By informing men of the nature, of their own nature, and of course, female nature, we are arming them, in effect, in such a way as to starve the system. Most men who are aware of the facts, as depressing, as soul-crushing as they can be, are not going to put themselves in a even worse situation by getting married, by engaging in the rituals that society has deigned to be proper. They're not going to do it. In the long run, that's going to have the benefit of, well, starving the system. That is, in effect, indirect political action. I want to help men on an individual basis. I'd like men to understand their lot in the world. And much like Barbarossa, I maintain this channel to be, well, independent and well, I don't affiliate with any specific group or organization, although I do feel a strong sense of intellectual kinship with Barbarossa on many, many different issues. And I appreciate that, and of course I've always appreciated his videos. Having said that, I've gotten subscribers who tell me in PMs or in comments that they had to unsubscribe me because my message was just too depressing. Well, hey, my message doesn't cheer me up either, but it's kind of a moot point. There's no, the blue pill world, the Matrix. I mean, I'll call that the cipher complex. This is what the cipher, who wanted to chew the steak that Agent Smith was offering, who betrayed his comrades. I understand the cipher complex, the cipher motivation, but for those who have been exposed to this and find it too depressing, who've actually internalized, and I've talked about the difference between acknowledgement and internalization, internalize these things as nigh irrefutable facts. Is a cipher scenario wherein you return to the blue pill matrix world even plausible? I mean, I'm going to be honest, full disclosure. I've sometimes thought of that. What if I just, swallowed the blue pill again, pretended everything was fine? Because I'm a weak human being. We all have our weaknesses. We all shrug, as Atlas has. But the problem is I can't do that. You can't, well, plug yourself back in. It's actually not an option. So those few men who decide to say unsubscribe me for reasons of depression or what have you, because the message isn't cheery, I reckon you're not going to have that much of an easier time just ignoring it. Because, like it or not, when you go out journey out in the real world, when you have relationships with women, when you decide to get married, you will be confronted with it. So that's, in that regard, pretty much what I have to say about that. Human biology is the driving force of human beings. You can't ignore it. You can at your own peril, but you're not going to get a whole lot done. Moreover, you're not going to be helping men with the core issues. The core issues there are political issues, but all those political issues ultimately stem from men's interpersonal relationships with women. And the only way you can address that is by specifically talking about the cause and effect relationship between relationship failures, between marriage failures, how it all works, putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Because the political thing just exists in a vacuum without that. The biological factors exist with or without the political issues. So, I'm certainly not going to discourage people who, everyone has a sales pitch ultimately, but if you're selling a specific product, then of course you have to present it in a certain way. I'm willing to bet money that Girl Writes What takes, in fact I know it takes extreme caution in the way she presents her message so as not to be too offensive. And that is important because, well, of her online persona, but also the way she's been received. I don't mince meat here. It doesn't really matter. I'm not vastly subscribed like she is, and very few people actually bother watching my videos. So it doesn't really matter. sorry, mince my words. You can't avoid the biology. It's just not possible because you're just talking about the floating abstractions. Otherwise, you can talk a lot about the biology without talking about the other stuff. On the other hand, there is a causal relationship between female hypergamy and divorce. People, men, women who don't want to believe that, well, it's been studied. We have the data. We've looked at the data. We can post more data. I don't know how much data people need to be convinced. On the final note of making women feel comfortable, well, that's really not my top priority. For lots of reasons. Women don't go out of their way to make men feel comfortable. I see no sense of obligation on my part to make women feel comfortable for similar reasons. After all, this is a channel devoted to, well, men's issues. I mean, if women want to jump on board for legitimate reasons, that's cool. But those legitimate reasons are going to be pretty rare, I think. Most women who are going to look at my channel or even have any involvement in it will view it as kind of a passing interest, a passing fascination. After all, I've made a video about this. I don't think women and men fit each other like kid gloves. There are conflicting interests here, and I want to stress something that Barbarossa said in a video once, that men and women are each other's vehicles of procreation, of reproduction, not each other's natural partners. Natural partner implies, to my mind, in the sense of a business contract, an equitable distribution of benefit to each party member. But not only in the modern sense, but if you look at our history and prehistory, we see that the equitable distribution in the so-called human relationship contract has by far gone to women, with men far too often getting the short end of the stick. I don't believe ultimately this can be remedied, but the precaution we can take as men going our own way, as people who just want to be informed, is to rail against that and not buy into that. There's nothing else really to be said about that. I mean, I am disappointed by that statement that Fiddlebogen made, I have to say. Not in him as a person, but if you need to sell something, I understand. But you know, in the video I made a while back where I talk about you don't just make nice with feminists to get your way, because they have oppositional desires and they don't have men's best interests at heart. And like mine, the majority of women, unfortunately, the majority of women do not have men's best interests in heart. Talked about this numerous times: solipsism, self-interest, me syndrome, and a willful ignorance with regards to looking at hard numbers and facts. We see it in the reactions of men who enable women. We have the cards stacked against us. I don't even know if it can be done. I don't know if it can be undone. Hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution. Well, if it can, all we can do is defend ourselves, and our best defense is information. That's pretty much it. We need to inform ourselves, inform other people. People are catching on. I'll give you an example. I mean, I've had friends who really have very little to do with YouTube. First linked to Barbarossa, then to my channel. They're catching on. They're paying attention to that stuff in real life. And that's a very powerful ripple effect. So, you know, to MRAs who are involved in activism and what have you, more power to them. But you're not going to kill the snake by not focusing on, well, its biology. That's sort of making an allusion to the serpent in the Garden of Eden, but you need to focus on what the causes are. Everything else, to my mind, is just peripheral. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Sorry, that was a bit discombobulated, but I'm going back on to break from this channel. And thanks very much to Barbarossa for making the video. I really appreciate all the work you've done. And look at my channel. My channel would not exist if it had not been for his channel to begin with. So I think there's a lot of stuff that we are doing to help men, and I hope it continues. And if you're interested in computer games, specifically Mass Effect, do swing by my other channel at Stardusk LP. Thanks for watching. Everyone take care. Wish you all the best.